feature you won't see anywhere else. The Jews are in the crosshairs of terrible anti-Semitism, and it centers right now on the European Union, which is about to impose harsh economic sanctions on a country that's not Iran, it's Israel.
Unbelievable. And these new rules could lead to the creation of a Palestinian state right next door to Israel. Chris Mitchell has the story for us from Brussels, Belgium.
New economic guidelines would prohibit money from the EU to Israeli communities beyond what's called the Green Line, also known as the West Bank. In order to receive funding, private Israeli entities must prove they have no ties to the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and East Jerusalem. The economic impact could run into the millions. Some believe the move is part of a growing anti-Semitism moving across Europe. Those new EU guidelines are being established here in Brussels, Belgium, at the European Parliament. They represent a major economic challenge to Israel and could predetermine the borders of a future Palestinian state.
And these guidelines that basically restrict any type of cooperation, financial cooperation between Europe and these disputed territories. And it's more complicated than you would think, because even if you would have one particular university wanting to engage in a multi-million program with the EU, if you happen to have one professor living, say, in East Jerusalem, it would be impossible with these new guidelines.
Andrew Tucker of Christians for Israel International says the guidelines put Europe in the position of creating a Jew-free state.
But I think the thing that concerns us most is the signal that it's giving. And we're concerned that Europe is on a slippery slope towards enforcing the creation of a Palestinian state, and it will be a Palestinian state where Jews will not be welcome.
Tucker and others feel this slippery slope would pressure Israel to create a future Palestinian state based on the so-called 1967 borders, divide Jerusalem, and make it illegal for Jews to live there.
There's nothing in the guidelines to say that Jews are not allowed to live in a new Palestinian state, but we would see it as part of a broader project whereby Europe is saying all Israeli settlements are illegal, which means any Jew living in so-called Eastern Jerusalem, and you know better than I do, you know this is the heart of Jewish Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, is illegal. Once you buy into that, then it's a question of implementing administrative steps to make it a reality, and the guidelines is just one example.
Israel and the EU did sign an economic agreement recently called Horizon 2020, but the financial restrictions remain in place for the disputed territories. Israel's representative to the EU feels that hurts both Israelis and Palestinians.
At the end of the day, if we are talking about the territories behind the 67 borders, it means also that settlements, but also Palestinians living around these settlements are not going to benefit from these grants.
It reminds Sandel of the anti-Semitism spawned in Europe during the 1930s.
For me, this is anti-Semitism 2.0. It's more sophisticated, but it's very effective in terms of demonizing Jews, demonizing the Jewish state, and making life very difficult for those in particular who would want to live in these disputed territories. I know many people will be upset by hearing me stating this, but I do see similarities. Then they simply said, don't buy from Jews. Today it's boycott Israel.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the European Parliament, Brussels, Belgium.
How could it happen? You know, we said after Hitler, never again, there'll never be another Holocaust, but there's this lingering anti-Semitism that is just appalling, and that's going to rear its head in this, well, it's surreptitious. You won't be able to know it's there, but it is. And if you read the book of the prophet Zechariah, it makes it very clear that the nations of the world will come against Israel, against the Jews in the latter days, as the Israelis have been drawn back, and they're going to find themselves alone. The Christians are going to be with them. And maybe the United States, but given the current status of our State Department and also our president, it's highly unlikely we will, quote, have their back. And we'll be standing off at the side saying, oh, what are you guys doing? We're, quote, leading from behind. So the Israelis are going to be on their own. and their only defender is going to be God Almighty. And you know something? When you've got him on your side, you win. Well, here at home, we have still another sign that Obamacare is failing. Wendy Griffith has that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's Wendy.
Pat, far fewer people are signing up for Obamacare than the White House expected. So far, only 365,000 people have signed up. That's more than 800,000 short of the government's estimate of 1.2 million by now. The slow start is a sign that the government may not reach its goal of getting 7 million to sign up by the end of March. Obamacare is creating serious political problems for Democrats on Capitol Hill, and many of them say the president hasn't done enough to fix it. Well, Christian radio broadcaster James Dobson is suing the government over the contraception mandate in Obamacare. The lawsuit says the requirement to provide the morning after pill and other emergency contraception as part of its health insurance coverage violates the ministry's religious beliefs. More than 60 lawsuits are challenging the same requirements. Turning overseas now, hundreds of people are dead in brutal fighting between Muslims and Christians in the Central African Republic. And now the international community is getting involved. George Thomas brings us that story.
1,600 French troops are on the streets of the Central African Republic, trying to put an end to clashes between Muslim and Christian fighters. The Red Cross says more than 460 people have died since last Thursday, many of the victims children. 2 French soldiers were also killed when they came under attack during an overnight patrol. The fierce fighting has forced some 20,000 people to take refuge at St. Paul's Church in the capital city, Bangui.
We have the impression that some people want to provoke Christians and Muslims to fight with each other. But we say no to this. We advocate tolerance, respect.
Central African Republic is a landlocked nation surrounded by some of the most dangerous places on earth. CBN News visited the country 2 years ago.
Since gaining its independence back in 1960 from the French, the Central African Republic has endured some 11 mutinies, numerous rebellious movements both in the north as well as in the south. And today, it is one of the poorest countries here on the African continent.
The government of the Central African Republic, a predominantly Christian country, was overthrown in March by Muslim rebels who looted, raped and killed for months. Despite the presence of French troops who are trying to disarm the militias, there's still plenty of pent-up rage on the streets. Late Tuesday, a mob of young men, reportedly Christians, set fire to a mosque in the capital. The Archbishop is appealing for calm and asking Christians not to carry out revenge attacks against Muslims.
I am asking Christians to seek peace, to seek pardon, and not to enter the cycle of vengeance that will not be good. Justice exists. I invite everyone to stay calm.
Despite having substantial natural resources like gold and diamonds, most people here are poor, and the country has seen little stability in 5 decades. On Monday, the U.S. military agreed to transport African Union peacekeeping troops to the country to try and end months of instability. George Thomas, CBN News.
Pat, what's your take on this situation?
Well, Wendy, we look back a few years ago to a man named Bokassa, who was a dictator in Central African Republic, and he brutalized young people. I mean, really brutalized. He was a vicious dictator, but a strong man. And because of the diamonds, they have a lot of diamonds in that country, he was bribing the Prime Minister of France, and there was a big scandal on it. So the French are putting troops back in now. But Wendy, the thing about that Central African Republic, they are swimming in oil. They have a huge amount of oil, but they're landlocked. There needs a pipeline to come out of there, but of course there's nobody to build a pipeline under these conditions. So what's going to happen? I think the Christians, like other places of Africa, are under assault from militant Islam. And I think the nations of the world need to recognize what is happening. Islam is doing everything it can to take over the African continent. And it's fueled in certain areas by Saudi money. I don't know what's going on in the Central African Republic, whether it's the Saudis or the Iranians, but whatever it is, it's a definite play from the Islamic extremists to take over Africa, and this is just one central place. a little tiny country, but loaded with resources. Wendy?
Pat, in India, Christians and Muslims have been working together to demand equal constitutional rights. But Indian police attacked peaceful protesters with water cannons and canes. The protest was organized by churches and Muslim groups. They want legal rights for Christians and Muslim Dalits. Those are people of a lower caste in India. They used to be called untouchables. Dalits, who are Hindus, Buddhists, and Sikhs, have certain rights that Muslim and Christian Dalits do not. Religion News Service reports that about 70% of the Christians in India are Dalits. Well, here in the U.S., the official start of winter is more than a week away, and already folks are tired of the snow and cold. Now, Arctic temperatures are settling in across much of the country, and another winter storm is expected in the next few days. Charlene Israel has that story.
The snow is over for now, but millions are waking up this morning to extreme cold temperatures.
It's bone-chilling cold.
In Fargo, North Dakota, temperatures dropped as low as 18 below zero overnight, and today's high, 3 below. It's actually warmer in Alaska. Minnesota is considered one of the coldest places in the country right now. Temperatures are as much as 20 degrees below normal, and with the wind chill, forecasters say it will feel like 40 to 50 below zero. But that didn't stop about 25 people from sleeping outside overnight to raise money for people in need.
Without fail, they always pick the coldest night of the year. They pick it months in advance, and no matter what, no matter when they pick it, it's always cold. But tonight is a little colder than normal.
The cold temperatures could turn deadly for those without heat. Warming centers in Illinois are open around the clock, offering people a place to come in from the cold.
It's very important that people have a resource, that they do not remain in a cold home or a cold car. It's very important that they find a warm site.
School-age children living in chilly South Dakota can normally handle the cold, but the frigid temperatures have forced teachers to cancel outdoor recess.
The temperature or the wind chill is 0 or below. We do have the children stay inside.
Meanwhile, the eastern part of the country will enjoy only a brief reprieve from snow. Forecasters say another round of storms is expected over the weekend. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Well, the United States isn't the only country that's been blanketed by snow already this year. The city of Jerusalem was treated to a rare early snow today. Look at that. Most public transportation had stopped and the main highway into Jerusalem was shut down. Schools were closed in Jerusalem and elsewhere in the country, giving many people in the city the opportunity to get out and enjoy the winter wonderland. Jerusalem usually gets snow once every few years, but the Holy City has seen snow for the last 3 winters in a row. Forecasters say it's not over yet. The stormy weather is expected to last through Saturday. It's very beautiful there, Pat.
Well, you know, the whole thing about shepherds abiding in their fields, keeping the watch of their flocks by night. People are saying, are you sure Jesus was born on December the 25th? And there's some that question that. But, you know, I was over there, and Ben Kinchlow and I, we baptized 59 people in the Jordan River on Christmas Day.
Oh, how wonderful.
So it was really balmy, but that's unique to have snow. But it can be very cold because those places do not have much heat. Mm-hmm. And that's very surprising. So it's part of the global situation that some forecasters want to call global warming.
3 years in a row.
It's really global chilling, keep it in mind. But you know, you're from Wisconsin. You used to go out in cold weather, didn't you?
Oh, all the time, but we dressed for it. You know, when you live there, it's different. Yeah.
Well, up in Hot Springs, Virginia, in the mountains of Virginia, it gets to be minus 60 wind chill. You know, it's cold, but at the same time, it feels more penetrating down near the ocean where it's much, much warmer in terms of the numbers, but because of the moisture, it's very cold.
I was going to say, it's the cold here to me is bone chilling because of the dampness.
But the other's
air.
dry, and then, hey, I was out, you know, when I was doing my little political thing, I was in New Hampshire. It was about 18 degrees below zero, and I was going around in a blazer. I had a scarf.
Foolish boy.
Yeah, but I was tough, but it didn't feel cold.
Yeah, but that's the danger of it,
yeah,
actually.
I guess it'll creep up on you and kill you. I wasn't out that long. All right.
Gay marriage is now illegal again in all of Australia. The country's Supreme Court issued that decision Wednesday. One Australian territory had legalized gay marriage, but the national government challenged that law because the Federal Marriage Act defines marriage as between a man and a woman. The Supreme Court agreed with the national government and said the issue of marriage is a matter for the national parliament in Australia. Well, plastic water bottles could be a thing of the past at Harvard University after students voted to ban those bottles. Plastic water bottles have become a big cause with some environmentalists. They say creating them pollutes the environment, and then they become a problem again when they clog up landfills. They also argue that tap water is just as good as not better. The College Fix website reports that campus administrators can't be forced to go along with the ban, but student organizers hope that they do. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.